Have you ever wondered why peace seems to remain just beyond your reach, even when you have done everything you thought would finally make you feel whole? Perhaps you have worked hard to create a good life. You have tried to be responsible, kind, useful, and strong. You have carried expectations that were placed upon you, and perhaps many that you quietly placed upon yourself. Yet there are moments, especially in the silence, when something still feels unsettled. The mind continues to search, the heart continues to wait, and a quiet question rises within you: why am I still not at peace? You may have believed that peace would come after the next problem was solved, after the relationship became easier, after someone finally understood you, after you received the recognition you deserved, after your health improved, your future became clear, or the people around you stopped creating so much tension. But each time one difficulty passes, another seems to appear. The mind moves the destination a little farther away. It says, not yet. You can rest when everything is under control. And so you continue trying to arrange the world in a way that will allow you to feel peaceful. Yet what if peace was never meant to depend on the world being arranged according to your wishes? What if true success has very little to do with what you accumulate, accomplish, or prove? What if success is the quiet experience of being at home within yourself, even while life remains uncertain? There is a part of you that already knows this. It is not the anxious voice that measures your life against the lives of others. It is not the voice that reminds you of every mistake or imagines every possible future. Beneath those thoughts is a deeper presence. It does not compete. It does not rush. It does not need to convince anyone of its worth. This deeper self has always been within you. You do not need to create it. You do not need to earn it. You are simply being invited to remember it. Imagine the sky on a stormy day. Dark clouds move across it. Thunder may fill the air. For a time, the clouds seem to occupy the whole world, yet the sky itself has not disappeared. It remains open and unchanged behind the storm. Your thoughts and emotions can be like those clouds. Fear appears, disappointment appears, anger, uncertainty, and loneliness appear. They may become so intense that you begin to believe they are who you are. But you are not the storm. You are the awareness that can notice the storm. This simple recognition can become the beginning of freedom. The moment you observe a fearful thought without immediately obeying it, something changes. The moment you notice resentment without allowing it to define your heart, a small space opens. Within that space, you begin to remember that you have a choice. Not always a choice about what happens, but a choice about the energy you bring to what happens. Perhaps someone recently disappointed you. You expected understanding, but received judgment. You offered love, but felt ignored. The mind may replay the conversation repeatedly, searching for the perfect response you should have given. It may create imaginary arguments in which you finally prove your point. The emotional struggle feels as though it is about the other person, yet beneath it, there may be a deeper longing. You wanted their behavior to confirm that you were worthy, respected, or loved. This is not a reason to criticize yourself. It is simply something to notice with compassion. Most people have been taught to look outward for evidence of their value. Approval feels like safety. Rejection feels like danger. Agreement feels like connection. Disagreement feels like separation. But the more your worth depends on other people, the more fragile your peace becomes. You may begin to see that another person's inability to recognize your value does not reduce that value. Their behavior may reveal their own fears, wounds, and limitations, but it does not define the truth of who you are. A tree does not become less alive because someone fails to admire it. It continues reaching toward the light. It continues offering shade. Its value does not rise and fall with the opinions of those who pass by. Perhaps you, too, can begin to live from a worth that does not require constant confirmation. This does not mean withdrawing from relationships or pretending that hurt does not matter. It means allowing your relationships to come from wholeness rather than hunger. You can love without begging to be completed. You can listen without abandoning yourself. You can care deeply without handing another person the power to determine whether you deserve peace. This is where inner success begins. It begins when you stop asking the outside world to give you what can only be remembered within. There may still be goals you wish to pursue and experiences you hope to create. There is nothing unspiritual about participating fully in life. The question is not whether you have desires. The question is whether your identity has become attached to their fulfillment. A seed does not struggle to prove that it deserves to become a flower. It responds to the soil, the rain, and the light. It grows according to an intelligence already present within it. There is an intelligence within you as well. Some may call it spirit, divine presence, universal wisdom, or the source of life. The name matters less than the quiet experience of connection. You may feel this connection while sitting beneath a tree, watching the evening sky, holding the hand of someone you love, or resting for a few moments without trying to solve anything. In such moments, the mind becomes less demanding and something deeper becomes easier to hear. It may not speak in words. It may arrive as a feeling of enoughness. For one breath, nothing is missing. For one moment, you are not trying to become more acceptable, more impressive, or more secure. You are simply present. And perhaps this is the first secret of both success and peace. What you are searching for is not at the end of a long journey. It is the awareness with which the journey is being lived. As we move more deeply into this reflection, you may begin to recognize the patterns that have kept you distant from your own peace. Not to judge them, but to understand them. Fear, comparison, control, attachment, and resentment are not proof that something is wrong with you. They are invitations to awaken. And behind every one of them, your true self is still waiting quietly, patiently, and without judgment for you to remember the peace that has never truly left you. When you begin to notice the patterns that disturb your peace, you may discover that many of them come from the same place, the part of the mind that feels separate, threatened, and incomplete. This part is often called the ego. The ego is not something you need to hate or destroy. It is simply the identity you created from memories, roles, opinions, fears, and the expectations of others. It tells you who you must be in order to feel safe. It compares, defends, controls, and searches for proof that you matter. The ego says, I am what I have. I am what I accomplish. I am what other people think of me. I am separate from everyone else. When these beliefs guide your life, peace becomes conditional. You can feel calm only when circumstances support the image you are trying to maintain. A compliment lifts you. A criticism wounds you. Progress makes you feel valuable. A setback makes you question your entire path. You may notice this in small moments. Perhaps you open your phone and see someone celebrating a new opportunity, a beautiful relationship, or a life that appears easier than yours. Before you even realize what is happening, your mind begins comparing. Their happiness becomes evidence of your delay. Their success becomes a reminder of what you believe you lack. The emotional struggle is not created by their life. It is created by the story the ego attaches to what you see. It whispers you are falling behind. You should be farther along. Something must be wrong with you. Comparison turns life into a race that no one can truly win because the finish line keeps moving. There will always be someone who appears to have more, know more, or receive more. And there will always be parts of their life that you cannot see. A flower does not look toward another flower and wonder why it opened sooner. Each one responds to its own season. One blooms in spring, another waits for summer. Neither is late. Perhaps your life is not behind. Perhaps it is unfolding according to a rhythm that cannot be measured by another person's calendar. This does not mean you stop growing or lose interest in your dreams. It means you release the belief that your worth depends on how your journey compares with someone else's. You can appreciate another person's light without assuming it diminishes your own. When comparison is seen clearly, it begins to lose its power. You may still feel it arise, but you no longer have to follow it. You can pause and say inwardly, this is the ego measuring again. That moment of awareness creates distance between you and the thought. You are no longer trapped inside the thought. You are the one observing it. This is one of the quiet miracles of awareness. What you can witness, you do not have to become. The same is true of fear. Fear often presents itself as protection. It tries to predict every possible disappointment so that you will never be surprised. It tells you to remain small, silent, and familiar. It may warn you not to love too deeply because you could be hurt. It may tell you not to begin because you could fail. It may insist that uncertainty is dangerous. You may have spent years listening to this voice without questioning it. Perhaps you have remained in a situation that no longer feels true because the unknown seems more frightening than the familiar. You may stay silent in a relationship because you fear conflict. You may postpone a meaningful decision because you want a guarantee that everything will work out. The ego loves guarantees, but life offers very few. Life moves more like a river than a straight road. It bends, deepens, narrows, and changes direction. When you demand that the river reveal every turn before you enter it, you remain standing on the shore. Trust does not mean knowing what will happen. Trust means discovering that you can remain connected to yourself even when you do not know. Fear may still be present, but it does not have to become your guide. You might imagine fear as a nervous passenger in the back seat. You can hear its warnings without allowing it to hold the steering wheel. You can say, "I understand that you are trying to protect me, but I am choosing to move with awareness rather than retreat automatically." This is not force, it is compassion. The ego becomes stronger when you fight it with anger. It softens when you meet it with understanding. The fearful parts of you often develop during moments when you felt rejected, abandoned, embarrassed, or unsafe. They learn to survive by controlling, pleasing, avoiding, or proving. Perhaps you became a people pleaser because approval once felt necessary for love. You learned to read the room, adjust your needs, and become whatever others seemed to require. You said yes while something within you quietly said no. You avoided disappointing others, yet repeatedly disappointed yourself. At first, this may have looked like kindness, but beneath it, there may have been fear. The fear of rejection. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear that love would disappear if you stopped performing for it. Awareness invites you to see this pattern without shame. You were doing the best you could with what you understood at the time, but now a new perspective becomes available. Love that requires you to abandon yourself is not the love your spirit is seeking. You can be compassionate without becoming invisible. You can care about another person's feelings without making them responsible for your identity. You can say no with gentleness. You can create boundaries without hatred. A boundary is not always a wall. Sometimes it is a gate that allows love to enter without allowing harm to remain. The ego may tell you that setting a boundary makes you selfish. Yet your deeper self may recognize that honesty creates more peace than resentment ever can. When you repeatedly ignore your truth, resentment begins to grow like weeds in an unattended garden. You may continue smiling outwardly while feeling tired inwardly. Eventually, the love you wanted to give becomes mixed with anger because it was never freely chosen. True generosity has space within it. It does not come from fear, guilt, or the need to be needed. As you become more aware, you begin asking a different question. Instead of asking, "How can I make everyone happy?" you may ask, "What response allows me to remain loving without betraying my own inner truth?" That question can change the way you live. Control is another pattern that often hides beneath anxiety. You may believe that if you think about a problem long enough, you can prevent pain. The mind repeats conversations, imagines outcomes, and searches endlessly for certainty. It feels busy, but it is rarely peaceful. Overthinking can become an attempt to control life before life happens. Perhaps you lie awake at night reviewing the future. You imagine what could go wrong with your health, your family, your work, or your relationships. The body is lying safely in bed, but the mind is living through difficulties that have not occurred. The ego believes worry is useful because it creates the feeling of doing something, yet worry often drains the energy you need to respond wisely in the present. A tree does not spend winter worrying that spring will never return. It releases its leaves and enters the silence of the season. It does not mistake stillness for failure. It trusts a rhythm deeper than its own understanding. You, too, move through seasons. There are seasons of clarity and seasons of uncertainty, seasons of connection and seasons of solitude, seasons in which doors open easily and seasons in which everything appears to pause. The ego may label a quiet season as wasted time, but your deeper self may be gathering strength beneath the surface as roots grow in darkness before anything appears above the soil. Not every important change is visible. Sometimes the most profound movement in your life is the movement away from an old belief. The belief that you must be perfect. The belief that you must be liked by everyone. The belief that your past has permanently defined you. The belief that you can only be peaceful when nothing goes wrong. These beliefs may feel like truth because you have repeated them for so long. But repetition does not make a thought sacred. A thought is still only a thought. You may begin to ask, does this belief bring me closer to love, or does it keep me inside fear? This question does not demand an immediate answer. It simply opens a door. The ego also holds tightly to being right. In conflict, it wants victory more than connection. It wants the final word, the apology, or the acknowledgement that your version of events is the correct one. Perhaps you have experienced an argument that continued long after the original issue had been forgotten. Both people became more interested in defending themselves than understanding each other. The conversation turned into a courtroom, with each person presenting evidence and waiting for the other to surrender. Even when you win such an argument, you may not feel peaceful. Being right can become a lonely place when the price is tenderness. This does not mean ignoring truth or accepting mistreatment. It means noticing when the need to prove yourself is creating more suffering than the disagreement itself. Sometimes peace enters when you become willing to say, I may not see everything clearly. Sometimes it enters when you listen without preparing your defense. Sometimes it enters when you decide that understanding matters more than winning. The ego fears this because it believes surrender means weakness. But spiritual surrender is not defeat. It is the release of unnecessary resistance. Imagine holding a rope so tightly that it burns your hands. You believe the rope is keeping you safe, yet the pain comes from refusing to loosen your grip. Many forms of suffering are like this. You hold on to an expectation of how someone should have treated you. You hold on to a plan that life did not follow. You hold on to an identity that no longer fits. You hold on to the belief that the past should have been different. And of course, part of you may be correct. Perhaps it should have been different. Perhaps you deserved more kindness. Perhaps the loss was unfair. Letting go does not mean denying any of that. It means recognizing that continuing to resist what has already happened cannot change the past. It can only carry the past into the present. Awareness allows you to notice the weight you have been carrying. You may ask yourself quietly, what am I trying to control that life is asking me to release? What approval am I still waiting for? What comparison is stealing the beauty of my own season? What fear has been making decisions for me? These questions are not meant to create more judgment. They are invitations to become conscious. The ego thrives in unconscious repetition. Awareness brings light. When light enters a dark room, it does not argue with the darkness. It simply reveals what was there. And as you begin seeing these patterns, you may feel something unexpected. Not shame, but tenderness. You may recognize that beneath your control was fear. Beneath your comparison was a longing to feel worthy. Beneath your resentment was pain that wanted to be acknowledged. Beneath your need to please was a desire to be loved. This understanding is the beginning of acceptance. And acceptance is not the end of change. It is the place where true change finally becomes possible. You no longer need to run from yourself. You no longer need to pretend that fear, anger, or insecurity are not present. You can hold them in awareness without allowing them to become your identity. Like clouds moving across the sky, they arise, remain for a time, and pass. The sky does not chase them away. It simply remains open. Perhaps this is what your true self has been doing all along. Beneath every anxious thought, every role, every mistake, and every attempt to prove your worth, there has been a quiet awareness that never stopped loving you. As you learn to rest in that awareness, the ego does not disappear overnight, but it no longer speaks with the same authority. You begin to hear another voice, a quieter voice, a voice that does not threaten or compare, a voice that reminds you that you do not need to control the entire river. You only need to meet the water that is touching your life now. And in the next part of this journey, that quiet awareness will lead you towards something even deeper, the freedom of forgiveness, the peace of surrender, and the remembrance of the self you were before fear told you who you had to become. As awareness begins to soften the grip of the ego, you may notice that certain emotions remain. You may understand your patterns and still feel hurt. You may recognize the need to let go and still feel unable to release what happened. This is where forgiveness enters. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. It can sound like an obligation to excuse what was painful, deny what was unfair, or welcome someone back into your life before trust has been restored. But forgiveness does not require you to pretend that nothing happened. It does not ask you to erase wisdom, abandon boundaries, or remain close to those who continue to cause harm. Forgiveness is the decision to stop carrying the wound as your identity. Perhaps someone betrayed your trust. Maybe the relationship ended without the apology you hoped for. Years may have passed, yet the memory still appears in quiet moments. The mind returns to the same scene, trying to change an ending that has already occurred. Each time the memory returns, the body may respond as if the event is happening again. The heart tightens, anger rises. You feel yourself becoming the person you were in that painful moment. The past cannot reach into the present by itself. It enters through the thoughts, meanings, and emotions that are still being carried. This does not mean you are responsible for what another person did. It means you now have an opportunity to decide how long their actions will continue living within you. Resentment can feel like protection. It may seem to say, if I remain angry, I will never be vulnerable again. But anger held for too long does not only remain connected to the person who hurt you, it becomes an atmosphere inside your own heart. It changes the way you see new relationships. It makes tenderness feel dangerous. It keeps the wound open in the name of safety. Forgiveness invites a different kind of strength. It allows you to say, what happened mattered, but it will not become the center of who I am. You may not be ready to forgive completely in a single moment. Perhaps forgiveness begins more gently. You may simply become willing to stop feeding the story. You may stop rehearsing the argument. You may stop imagining the apology. You may stop asking the past to provide the peace that only the present can offer. A garden does not become healthy by hating the weeds. It becomes healthy through patient attention. The weeds are removed, the soil is renewed, and new life is given room to grow. Your inner life may ask for the same patience. There may also be someone you have found even harder to forgive, yourself. Perhaps you made a decision you deeply regret. Maybe you stayed too long, left too soon, trusted the wrong person, or failed to recognize what now seems obvious. You may look back with the awareness you have today and judge the person you were then. But the person you were then did not possess the wisdom you carry now. You were moving through life with the fears, needs, and understanding available to you at that time. Even your mistakes may have been attempts to find safety, love, belonging, or relief. Self-forgiveness does not mean refusing responsibility. It means allowing responsibility to become wisdom rather than punishment. You can acknowledge the harm you caused. You can make amends when possible. You can choose differently now. But you do not have to continue condemning yourself in order to prove that you have learned. A lesson does not become more valuable because you suffer forever. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say to your past self is, you were lost, but you were still worthy of compassion. This compassion opens the way to surrender. Surrender may sound frightening because the ego associates it with giving up. Yet spiritual surrender is not the abandonment of your life. It is the abandonment of the belief that life must unfold exactly as you planned. Think of how much energy is spent resisting what already is. You resist aging because the body is changing. You resist uncertainty because the future will not explain itself. You resist loss because your heart still wants what is no longer present. You resist another person's choices because you believe they should be different. Resistance says, this moment should not be happening. Surrender says, this moment is here. How can I meet it with awareness? The difference is quiet, but profound. Imagine standing in the ocean while a wave approaches. If you stiffen and fight it, the force of the water may knock you down. If you remain present and move with it, the same wave can pass through and around you. Life brings waves of change. Some are gentle. Others take away what you believed would always remain. Surrender does not prevent grief. It allows grief to move without becoming permanent resistance. Perhaps you have lost someone you loved. In such moments, spiritual language can feel too small. There may be no explanation that satisfies the heart. The absence remains real. Yet even in grief, you may discover that love has not disappeared. Its form has changed. The person may no longer stand beside you, but the love you shared may continue through your kindness, your memories, and the way their presence shaped your life. You may feel them in a familiar song, in the light at a certain hour, or in the quiet knowledge that love is larger than physical closeness. The ego sees endings. The soul may recognize transformation. You do not have to force this perspective before you are ready. Grief has its own rhythm. Acceptance cannot be hurried, but perhaps, in time, sorrow and gratitude can sit beside each other. You can miss what was and still be thankful that it existed. Trust begins to grow when you stop demanding that life explain every turn. Trust does not mean believing that every event will be pleasant. It means becoming open to the possibility that meaning can emerge from experiences you would never have chosen. There may have been a closed door that once felt like rejection. Years later, you may see that it redirected you toward a different path. A relationship that ended may have taught you how to stop abandoning yourself. A season of loneliness may have helped you hear your own voice. Not every difficulty must be called a gift. Some experiences are simply painful. But even pain can become a doorway to greater awareness when you allow it to deepen rather than harden you. A tree that survives strong winds does not become powerful by resisting all movement. It bends. Its roots deepen. Its strength is revealed through flexibility. You may be learning the same kind of strength. This trust changes the way you approach intention. Intention is not the anxious demand that the universe deliver a specific result. It is the energy from which you choose to live. You may intend to be peaceful even before every conflict is resolved. You may intend to be loving even while another person remains difficult. You may intend to be honest even when honesty changes a relationship. You may intend to remain open even when the future is uncertain. When intention comes from the ego, it often asks, how can I make life give me what I want? When intention comes from the deeper self, it asks, what qualities do I wish to bring into this life? This shift changes everything. You stop waiting for the world to become kinder before you practice kindness. You stop waiting to feel secure before you offer trust. You stop waiting for every wound to disappear before you allow yourself to love again. Love becomes a way of seeing. This does not mean loving every behavior or agreeing with every person. Love may express itself as closeness, but it may also express itself as distance. It may speak gently, or it may remain silent. It may forgive and still choose not to return. Love is not always soft in appearance, but it is free from the desire to punish. Perhaps there is someone in your life who repeatedly creates tension. You may have tried to change them, explain yourself, or earn a different response. Each interaction leaves you emotionally exhausted. A new perspective may arise when you stop asking, how can I make this person understand me? And begin asking, how can I remain connected to my own peace in their presence? You may listen without absorbing every criticism. You may respond without defending every detail. You may recognize that their behavior comes from a consciousness you cannot control. This does not make you passive. It makes you free. You begin to understand that your peace is not something other people give or remove. It is something you return to. This return often happens in silence. There may be moments when you sit quietly and notice the breath entering and leaving the body. Thoughts continue to appear, but you do not follow every one. You listen to the sounds around you. You feel the support of the ground beneath you. Nothing extraordinary happens, yet you feel less divided. Silence reminds you that you exist beneath your thoughts. The mind may still speak about yesterday and tomorrow, but the present moment asks nothing from you. It does not ask you to improve your past or secure your future. It only asks you to be here. In this presence, you may begin to feel your connection with the source. Perhaps the source is not far away. Perhaps it is the life moving through your breath, the intelligence beating your heart, the quiet awareness witnessing every change. You may have spent years looking for spiritual connection as though it were something outside you. Yet connection may be less like finding a distant destination and more like removing the noise that has prevented you from noticing what has always been present. The sun does not stop shining when clouds cover the sky. Your deeper nature does not disappear when fear covers your awareness. You are not becoming someone entirely new. You are releasing what is not true enough to remain, the need to prove, the need to control, the need to carry every wound, the need to be defined by the past. As these begin to loosen, something simpler appears. You may feel more grateful for ordinary moments, a quiet morning, a familiar face, the sound of rain, the ability to begin again. Gratitude is not the denial of difficulty. It is the recognition that difficulty is not the whole of life. Even on a painful day, one breath can be received. One act of kindness can be noticed. One moment of stillness can become a place of return. Gratitude gently shifts attention from what the ego says is missing to what the present is already offering. And this may be one of the deepest secrets of inner peace. Life does not always become easier before you become free. Freedom begins when you stop arguing with your worth, stop demanding certainty from the future, and stop asking the past to become different. You begin meeting life as it is while choosing the energy with which you will live it. From this place, forgiveness becomes freedom. Surrender becomes trust. Intention becomes alignment. Love becomes your natural direction. And your true self begins to feel less like a distant spiritual idea and more like the quiet presence that has been guiding you all along. As you begin to live from this deeper awareness, the 10 secrets of success and inner peace may no longer feel like separate ideas. They begin to reveal themselves as different expressions of one truth. Peace is not something you find after life becomes perfect. It is something you remember while life is still unfolding. You may still experience difficult mornings. You may still feel misunderstood, uncertain, or afraid. The mind may return to comparison. Old resentment may rise without warning. You may catch yourself trying to control a future that has not yet arrived. None of this means you have failed. Spiritual growth is not the absence of human emotion. It is the growing awareness that you do not have to be ruled by every emotion that passes through you. A peaceful life is not a life without storms. It is a life in which you remember the sky. Each day offers small opportunities to return. You may begin with stillness. Before reaching for your phone, before listening to the demands of the world, you might give yourself a few quiet moments. You do not need to force your mind to become empty. You can simply notice your breathing and allow yourself to be present. In that silence, you may ask, what energy do I wish to bring into this day? Not, how can I control everything? Not, how can I make everyone approve of me? But can I move through this day with a little more patience, honesty, and love? This is intention in its simplest form. You may also practice awareness in ordinary moments. When anxiety appears, you can notice it without immediately believing its message. When comparison arises, you can recognize the ego measuring your life. When irritation enters a conversation, you can pause before giving it your voice. That pause may last only one breath, but within it there is freedom. You are no longer reacting from an old pattern. You are choosing from the present. Gratitude can become another quiet path home. You do not need to create a long list or pretend that everything is wonderful. You may simply notice one thing that is already supporting you. The warmth of water, a moment of rest, a person who cares, the chance to begin again. Gratitude does not ignore what hurts. It widens your vision so that pain is not the only thing you see. Forgiveness may also become a daily practice. Some days, forgiveness will feel complete. On other days, the old hurt may return. You can meet it gently and say, I am willing to release a little more. You do not have to force your heart to move faster than it can. Even the willingness to forgive is a form of freedom. You may discover that self-forgiveness is needed just as often. When you make a mistake, notice whether your inner voice becomes harsh. Ask yourself whether punishment is truly helping you become more loving. Perhaps you can replace judgment with responsibility. You can say, I see what happened. I will learn from it. I will choose differently, and I will not abandon myself. Trust can be practiced in moments of uncertainty. When the path ahead is unclear, you may remind yourself that you do not need to see the entire road. You only need enough light for the next honest step. A river does not need a map of the ocean before it begins to flow. It moves around stone, through narrow places, and across open land. It trusts its nature. You, too, can move without having every answer. There may be days when trust means taking action. There may be days when trust means waiting. Sometimes it means speaking. Sometimes it means releasing. Sometimes it means allowing a closed door to remain closed without turning it into proof that you are unworthy. Living in harmony with the source does not mean receiving constant signs or certainty. It may simply mean refusing to separate yourself from love. You begin to ask, what would love choose here? Love may choose patience. Love may choose a boundary. Love may choose honesty. Love may choose silence instead of another argument. Love may choose to walk away without hatred. Love may choose to stay present when fear wants to escape. The answer will not always be comfortable, but it may carry a quiet sense of truth. Over time, success begins to take on a different meaning. You may still create, contribute, dream, and grow, but your worth no longer rises and falls with the results. You do not need achievement to prove that your life matters. You begin to recognize success in the moment you remain peaceful where you once reacted, in the moment you forgive what you once carried, in the moment you stop comparing your season to someone else's, in the moment you trust yourself enough to say no, in the moment you choose love without abandoning wisdom. These are not dramatic victories. They may never be noticed by the world, but they change the atmosphere of your inner life. And perhaps this is what you have been searching for all along. Not a new identity, but freedom from the identities that were never fully true. Not a perfect life, but a peaceful relationship with life. Not proof that you are worthy, but the remembrance that your worth was never missing. You have always carried a quiet center within you. It was there beneath the fear, beneath the striving, beneath the need to be understood. It did not disappear when you became lost. It simply waited without judgment. Whenever you become still, you can return. Whenever you forgive, you can return. Whenever you release the need to control, you can return. Whenever you choose love over fear, you can return. And each return makes the path more familiar. So as this reflection comes to an end, allow yourself to rest for a moment. You do not need to solve your whole life today. You do not need to become someone more spiritual, more successful, or more complete. Perhaps you can simply remember that you are already connected to the peace you seek. Let the next breath remind you. Let the silence remind you. Let the ordinary beauty of this moment remind you. You are not here to become worthy of love. You are here to express the love that has always lived within you. You are not here to conquer life. You are here to move with it. And you are not becoming your true self. You are remembering. If this journey has awakened something within you, you are invited to share your reflection in the comments. And if you would like to continue exploring inner peace, forgiveness, awareness, and spiritual freedom, subscribe and return for more quiet journeys into the wisdom already living within you.